Welcome in, comrades. My name is Jack Sperry, and this is the Commanders Report. On today's show, I'm going to be grading every single pick that the Washington Commanders made during the 2023 NFL Draft, and then at the end, I'm going to be grading the entire performance here for your Washington Commanders in the NFL Draft. Just to recap here what the Commanders ended up doing, they went Emmanuel Forbes there in the first round, get hopefully your cornerback one for the future there out of Mississippi State. Then you go Quan Martin in round 2, a very versatile defensive back. Could be playing nickel, could be playing free safety. Will be very interesting to see what he's going to be doing. Ricky Stromberg, center/guard out of Arkansas in round 3. Brayden Daniels to start off day 3 today at 118th overall. And then as the day went on, KJ Henry, moving up for KJ Henry from Clemson, edge rusher. Chris Rodriguez Jr., you get him in the 6th at 193rd overall. And then you finish out the day with Andre Jones, an edge rusher out of the University of Louisiana. So now that we have this complete draft haul for your Washington Commanders, give me your grade. I'm going to be revealing my grade here later on in the show. But before we get things going here on my end, I want to hear what you guys have to say about the draft haul for this year's Washington Commanders. Go into the comment section. Give me an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So whenever you get an ad break here, just go ahead, go into the comment section, find that pinned comment. It'll be right there at the top and answer today's question. So you start off with this first pick here with Emmanuel Forbes at number 16 overall. You know what? I really like Emmanuel Forbes as a player. I think that he's a really, really good fit for Ron Rivera's defense. 6 foot, 166 pounds, though, is really the kicker there. Some people don't think that he's going to be able to survive against bigger wide receivers in the run game. Some people think he's just going to be completely exposed against screens, against the run game, these sorts of things. But he definitely needs to play in an off coverage system. Good news for him. The Washington Commanders run that type of system. Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew picked this guy over guys like Christian Gonzalez, Deonte Banks, and Joey Porter Jr. So they obviously believe in this guy. I think he's got some great ball skills. He had 6 pick sixes throughout his career. He's a really, really good football player. And I just think that, you know, if you're adding a good football player in round 1, you're doing a pretty darn good job. You take a look at what he's entering into here. I think he's probably going to be going into the year next year as the cornerback 2. And he's going to have the opportunity to really establish himself as the future cornerback 1. I think he's going to be able to come in right away and play. I think if you draft a corner in round 1, you're probably going to be playing him right away. And Kendall Fuller had a really good year last year, a pretty solid year. I think he's a true cornerback 2. I don't think he's a true cornerback 1 in the league. Hopefully Emmanuel Forbes over the next couple of years can blossom into that shutdown number 1 corner for the Commanders over the next couple of years. And obviously this has been a problem for the Commanders over the last couple of years. The secondary has really let the team down here defensively over the last couple of years. You really do a good job here addressing a couple of these needs here in the draft, so that is a good thing. But because you have Deonte Banks and Christian Gonzalez on the board, and I just think that those players, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're more versatile, and I think they might even be just a little bit better in coverage than Forbes. I just think because of the context there, that's why I gave this pick a grade of C. Now, maybe over the next couple of weeks, I might be swayed to make this like a B or a B plus because he is a good player. I think he's a good fit for the defense. I think he's going to work out with the Washington Commanders. But, you know, I'm always going to be thinking, what if they had Christian Gonzalez? What if they had Deonte Banks, guys that I consider better talents than Emmanuel Forbes? I had Emmanuel Forbes as a late first-round cornerback. You take him number 16 overall against a couple of guys that I had as top 10 prospects. So when you take into account that context, I don't like this pick quite as much, but I think Forbes is a good player, and it's going to work out in the end. So we're going to be breaking down the rest of the picks here in just a second, but make sure you subscribe to the channel. Right now, we're going to be having undrafted free agency coverage here on the channel. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing our undrafted free agency tracker video, which is always one of our best videos of the year. So make sure that you click that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you know when that video comes out tomorrow. Then we get into round 2, and you take Quan Martin here out of the University of Illinois. And Martin was one of my favorite defensive back prospects in this year's draft class. 5'11", 194 pounds, very versatile player. He played a lot of nickel cornerback, played a little bit of free safety with the Illini there, and he's just really, really sticky. He's really, really good at a lot of different things. Good tackler, good athlete as well. He's a jack of many trades here. He could play free safety. He could play cornerback. We don't know quite yet. I just think that this is a versatile piece that you're adding to this secondary. That's a really darn good player. He's only 23 years old. He was the number 3 safety on our big board. He was the number 2 safety on my personal big board. And I think the role that he's probably going to be playing next year is nickel cornerback. I think that's where he best fits at the National Football League level. And you spend the first couple picks here addressing those needs in the secondary with Emmanuel Forbes and Quan Martin. I think those are 2 very good picks for you if you are the Washington Commanders. But another option for Martin is that he could potentially play free safety. Now, I think Derek Forrest is going to be the free safety next year. I think that's the plan. And then Martin will probably play a little bit of both, a little bit of safety, probably majority nickel cornerback though, but it's certainly possible that Martin blossoms into a free safety in the National Football League. It'll definitely be interesting to see what Ron Rivera has in store for Quan Martin, man. I think he's a really darn good player. Can't wait to see what he can do at the National Football League level, whether it's at safety, whether it's at nickel cornerback. I think he's a really good player. So I'm going to give this grade an A-. I think that after night 1, you could have had Deonte Banks or Christian Gonzalez. You pass on those guys. That's kind of disappointing. You go into day 2 and you get a really, really good player. And then overall, you have 2 really good players here in your secondary. Emmanuel Forbes is a good fit for the defense. Can't complain too much there. And then you got Quan Martin, who's also a great fit. He's going to be able to do multiple things for you. He's a very versatile player, and you need those in your secondary if you're going to be successful. Then in round 3, you get center/guard here, interior offensive lineman, Ricky Stromberg out of Arkansas. He is our number 4 overall center in this year's draft class. 6'3", 306 pounds, a little bit undersized here. And, the traits just aren't going to blow you away. The play strength isn't all that great. He plays with great effort, and he plays with pretty good technique as well. Great locker room guy. But, on round 3, I really do think that this pick could have been used on a more impactful player on day 1. For me, this is going to be a depth offensive line piece. I'm not sure if Ricky is really going to be starting here in year 1. I mean, you got Charles Leno Jr. at left tackle, and, he's not a tackle, so he's not going to be playing tackle. But Andrew Norwell, I think that they still believe in Norwell, trying to play him here coming up into next year. And they got Chase Roulier playing center. Sam Cosmi, you add Nick Gates in free agency. I think that this is probably a depth piece along the offensive line, and those pieces are nice to have. But I think that, with Washington trying to make a splash in 2023, trying to make the playoffs, I think this pick probably could have been used on someone that's going to be a bit more impactful on day 1. So for me, this pick was a grade A of C. I think that there were some really good players that would have had a big impact on the Commanders on day 1, and they went with somebody that's probably going to be sitting the bench unless somebody gets hurt. So I just don't really think that's a great impact kind of pick. I think in round 4, I would have liked this pick a lot more, and we'll get to who they did take in round 4 here in just a second. But let me know in the comments, who is your favorite Commanders draft pick from this year's draft class? For me personally, it's definitely Quan Martin. I think that he is definitely a Swiss Army knife. I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how his NFL career unfolds in the nation's capital. Let me know who your favorite Commanders draft pick this year was in the comments section. Then you get to round 4 here, and you got Brayden Daniels, offensive tackle, kind of like a Swiss Army knife of sorts here, kind of a backup level offensive lineman here, 6'3", just short of 300 pounds, so definitely undersized, okay? That was the big knock on him coming out in this process, is that he just doesn't have the play strength that you need in order to really thrive in the National Football League, either at tackle or at guard. Doesn't play with really great feet or hands. He's a good run blocker. He's somebody that can really move. He's a great athlete. He's got some tools that NFL teams covet, and that's why he went here in round 4. But just like Ricky Stromberg, I think this is another depth piece on the offensive line that's really not going to be playing much unless somebody gets hurt. Right at right tackle, which is where he played in college, you got Andrew Wiley, and you're paying him a bunch of money in NFL free agency here to come to the Commanders. You're going to be playing him. Okay, so Brayden Daniels is probably going to be right right behind him. He can also play guard, so if somebody goes down as well, you've got Nick Gates, Ricky Stromberg, or Daniels that could kick inside. It's nice that you have this versatility on the offensive line, but it just seems like the picks here for the Commanders just keep piling up of players that just won't really be hitting the field, won't be really making an impact in year one. I understand that it's nice to have this depth on the offensive line, something that GMs really do covet, but overall, I'm not too keen on it. But since it's in the fourth round here, getting a nice piece that can handle his business on an NFL field, which is what Brayden Daniels is, it's a pretty good pick. Okay, it's not something that's fantastic. It's not like they got a great value here or anything like that. They got a solid player here, so I'm going to give that a B. And then you get into round 5, and the Commanders decide to make a move to trade up. This is their only trade of the 2023 NFL Draft, and they trade up with the Buffalo Bills, giving them one of their 6th-round picks in order to move up for Clemson edge rusher KJ Henry. And I'm a believer in guys that are really technicians at the position, guys that use their hands well, guys that have multiple moves at their disposal. That is what KJ Henry is. Now, the big knock on him is that he's not the most toolsy player out there. He's not super fast. He doesn't have the longest arms in the world. He doesn't have the greatest get-off in the world, but he uses his hands well. He's going to be a very solid player in the National Football League. Some people said it was a little bit early for KJ Henry, especially to trade up for him here in round 5. I would tend to agree with that, but I think, with Montez Sweat and Chase Young, both of their futures in Washington are kind of in limbo. Chase Young's 5th-year option was declined. Montez Sweat is going to be a free agent in 2024. Getting a guy like KJ Henry that can come in here, be a solid rotational pass rusher for you here in round 5. I'm not in love with the trade up to go get him. I would have rather just stayed put and got him. So that's why it's not an A for me, but I'm going to give it a B+. I'm a believer in guys that can use their hands well, that have multiple moves at their disposal. You're not going to be using Henry on every single down. He's not going to be a starter. I mean, of course, he's not going to start over Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Those guys are first-round picks. But you look at KJ Henry, he's going to be a decent rotational edge rusher for you, and hopefully he can develop into a nice piece for this, some nice depth for you on the defensive line for years to come. So you've given me your favorite Commanders draft picks so far, or not so far, in the 2023 NFL Draft. Now give me the least favorite Commanders draft pick for you in this draft class. For me, I'm going to be getting into my least favorite pick here in just a second. We haven't talked about him yet, but I really want to know both who your favorite Commanders draft pick is, and then also who your least favorite is, because I think that's where all the juicy stuff is. Then you get into round 6, and the Commanders end up taking running back Chris Rodriguez Jr., Ron Rivera, Martin Mayhew. They've been saying for a while that their plan was to take a running back, and their plan has been to add another running back to this room. But this was a bit of a surprise because Chris Rodriguez Jr. is seen as more of a power back, somebody that's a bruiser. And if you take a look at what the Commanders have in their running back room right now, they've already got bruisers, right? Brian Robinson is a bruising type of power running back. Antonio Gibson is a really, really big running back as well. And then you add another power back. I just don't really understand the move. I understand that Washington apparently had a 3rd-round grade on Chris Rodriguez Jr., and for me, that's kind of nuts. I had a 5th-round grade on him. So you're getting him technically at a value here. I think that he's got some short area quicks that I like. The long speed is not fantastic. Obviously, he's a big body that can really get things going in the run game in short areas and in the short yardage game, but you already had that. And another thing here, the thing that really drives me nuts about this pick in particular is that Deuce Vaughn out of Kansas State was still available. And Deuce Vaughn he is exactly the type of thing that the Commanders don't have right now. A shifty, really good receiving type of running back that you just can't tackle. And, he would have been the lightning to Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson's thunder. But instead, you just go ahead and get more thunder. And I just don't understand the reasoning behind that. It seems like Eric Bieniemy might be trying to establish a power run game. So I guess if you're thinking about that, then, you want as many power backs as possible. And, of course, Antonio Gibson can do some stuff outside of just short yardage. But I just don't really understand this move. I think it's a good value here, so I'll give it a C-. I won't give it too low of a grade. But overall, it's just a little bit head-scratching, given that you could have had Deuce Vaughn here. And just like in round 1, where you could have had Christian Gonzalez or Deonte Banks or Joey Porter Jr., you went with somebody that it's just not quite as good. So I think with the context applied here, it's just not as good of a move as it could have been for the Washington Commanders at the running back position, at least for me, man. So now we get to Andre Jones here, who was the pick in round 7 for the Commanders, and this was my least favorite pick. I evaluated 42 edge rushers in this year's NFL draft class, and Andre Jones was number 42. Like this guy was the lowest graded player at the edge position that I had on my board this year. There's guys that went undrafted that had higher grades than Andre Jones. Now, he's a rangy player that has some great length and burst. I will give him that. But he is very old. He is 25 years old coming into the league, and I just don't think that he's somebody that's going to be coming in here and as a developmental prospect at 25 years old is going to be able to just flip a switch and all of a sudden be this great NFL type edge rusher. Now he's got the skills, he's got some really great traits that you look for, the great length and the burst and the athleticism, sure. But the technical refinement is just not there, and at 25 years old, I'm just not sure if it's ever going to get there. So let's take a look at what the Athletics' Dane Brugler had to say. It says Jones is a rangy, long-armed edge player with practical traits to do everything well enough, but he needs further development to take that next step and separate himself next to his competition in an NFL camp. That's absolutely right. He's going to be going into camp. I think he's going to be fighting for a job. I think that Washington believes in the traits a little bit, enough to take him here in the 7th round. It is just a 7th round pick. After all, you do take KJ Henry, who I believe in a lot more at the NFL level personally. So if you're somebody that really likes traits, really likes the long arms, really likes the athleticism, the short area burst, then maybe he can become a decent player for you, and you might like this pick a little bit more. But for me, it's a 7th round pick, so I can't really get too upset here, but I'll give it a B- here. I think that some other players would have been nicer here. And Andre Jones Jr., like I said, I had players that went undrafted that had higher grades than Andre. So I'm just not a huge fan of Andre Jones Jr.'s future in the NFL. I think that he's got a very short leash because he is so old at this point, and I'm just not a huge fan of that pick. All right, so now in totality, I'm going to give the Washington Commanders a B- for this draft. You add some really nice pieces in your secondary in Emmanuel Forbes, Quan Martin. You add a couple decent pieces along the trenches as well in the middle rounds with Ricky Stromberg and Brayden Daniels, some guys that can play multiple positions, can handle their business on an NFL field. Same thing with KJ Henry. But there really wasn't that pick where I was just like really in love with. Like Quan Martin is a really good pick. I gave it an A-, but that was the highest pick I gave. Like there's just a lot of just okay mid-type picks in this draft class to me. And I think if you're the Washington Commanders, you're in a division with the Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys, and the New York Giants, all of which made the playoffs in 2023. I think you needed to put a little bit more spice in here, put a little bit more excitement in here. I just think that there was a lot of boring picks, to be quite frank with you, in this year's NFL draft class. You add some nice pieces, you add some nice depth, and you address some of your bigger needs. So I can't get too upset with the overall haul, but I think at the end of the day, the haul definitely could have been better, at least in my opinion. I'm going to give it a B-. So which player do you want the Washington Commanders to sign as an undrafted free agent? Players can sign with whoever they want now. The NFL draft is over. Which player do you want the Commanders to sign? We are going to be covering every single undrafted free agent that the Commanders sign on tomorrow's show. So make sure you click that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you always know when we put out new videos for your Washington Commanders.